When you need mealtime inspiration, it's worth shopping Kroger for thousands of appetizing ingredients that inspire countless mouth-watering meals. And no matter what tasty choice you make, you'll enjoy our everyday low prices. Plus, extra ways to save, like digital coupons worth over $600 each week and up to $1 off per gallon at the pump with points. So you can get big flavors and big savings. Kroger, fresh for everyone. Fuel restrictions apply.
Hey Atlanta, Apple is open for small business. That's right. We're here to make starting and running your business simpler. With privacy and security built in on all devices, it's easy for you to protect your customers' data. And if you need hardware or software support, you'll get advice from business experts at no cost whatsoever. So you can focus more on the soup du jour and less on, the other stuff. At Apple, we're open for your small business. Go to apple.com/small business or visit an Apple store to learn more.
When you only have time for the plot and not time to explore the thematics of that, then you're just left feeling like, actually in another cake analogy, that we wanted an extra layer of icing or something. Or not even icing, maybe we got the icing. What actually we were wanting is like a really fulfilling cake. There's so much promise to this, and I almost feel like let's do a limited series now and kind of delve into the stuff that we're all craving.
I don't think it was quite up with her standards. I did really, really enjoy her taking out a bad guy with a baked bean can.
Yeah, that was brilliant.
Hey everyone, welcome to this episode of Flixwatcher podcast. Today I'm joined by Bertie.
Hello.
Linton.
Hi.
And Helen.
Hello.
And we're going to be talking about the Netflix original Lou.
Thank you as always to the mighty people for the mighty, mighty tunes. And thanks to Ben from Rockwood Audio for his awesome editing skills.
Please do remember to write a review and rate us on Apple Podcasts and anywhere you can do where you listen to the podcast, because it really does help us.
And you can join in the conversation with us on Twitter
At FlixWatcherPod and on Instagram
at Flixwatcher.
Hello film fans, welcome to Flixwatcher podcast. Joining us today we have Bertie and Linton. Over to you please, Linton, to tell our listeners a little bit more about who you are and what you do, please.
Sure, I'm Linton Stephens. I am a classically trained professional bassoonist, so I do that most of the time. I'm also a broadcaster for BBC Radio 3, and I've got my own show / podcast, which is called Classical Fix. It's a show where I put together a mix of 6 classical pieces and send them to people who don't usually listen to them, and then we just talk about what they like and what they didn't like. So that's what I do.
What kind of insights do you get from people who don't traditionally listen to classical music?
Do you know what, Kobe? It's really interesting. The nice thing about it is that we talk about the very human reaction to music in general. So there's nothing really academic about it. And I think it's that academic side that scares people about classical music. Sometimes they come to it and they think that they need to know something about it in order to engage with it. And also, I think it's seen as a kind of highbrow art form. But at the end of the day, music's just music. So it's really nice to just dig in, and it's nice when you get a surprising reaction from a guest. It's also really nice when you get a guest who absolutely loves a piece and you can dig into the kind of the emotions and how it moves people. So, I mean, I feel really fortunate because I get to do what I love. I get to talk about something that I'm really passionate about and have those magic moments and those connections with people when I've picked out a piece that they really love as well.
I think when I was growing up and my parents said, do you want to learn an instrument? I was like, oh man, I'm going to have to learn Mozart and Beethoven and all this nonsense. But then at the same time, I was loving to bits like John Williams scores from Star Wars.
Yeah.
And it's the same, you know what I mean? I'm just like, contextually, sometimes that's what you need sometimes to put them together.
Well, it's it's just having a way in, isn't it? That's all it is. It's all. It is. The genre is. I was talking about it with a guest the other day. The genre is so broad. Classical music isn't just this one tiny little thing. There's so many things that constitute classical music, like electronic music, film scores, crossover, all that kind of thing. It all fits within the genre, and I can guarantee anybody could listen to classical music and find at least one piece that they'd love, not just like, but love.
My favourite at the moment is Holt's. I'm sure I've said his name completely wrong. The planet sequences.
Yeah,
and that's purely because it features heavily in an episode of Bluey, which is my kid's favourite TV show at the moment. Bertie, who are you?
Who am I? I'm a writer-director. I most often work with another woman called Bert, and we've been working in film and TV for about 16 years now.
Whoa.
But kind of really, long time. But really kind of moving. I live in Los Angeles now, which is kind of, we were having this chat just before you came on, where the industry is. And so we did our second film, Troop Zero, is how we were most known. And then we did episodes of The Great, which is an amazing Hulu show. We moved on to do episodes of Hawkeye for Marvel, which was an incredible experience and so much fun. And I realised how much I love shooting action. And recently, Our Flag Means Death for HBO, which is super fun.
Yeah. With
Taika and Reese and that whole crew of pirates, of gay pirates, which is amazing. And just finished up on a show with Brie Larson for Apple.
Oh, wow.
So we're currently, I'm taking a break from the edit to be with you right now.
Oh, sorry to pull you away from it. Sorry, not sorry.
It's all right.
But myself and I know Linton and Katie from doing capoeira back in the day, and it's great to see you both doing like fantastic stuff. When we just met, like when we were clapping in white clothes in a cold, drafty hallway,
doing cartwheels up and down.
Yeah, exactly.
Always do a cartwheel.
I want to talk to you briefly, Bertie, about you. Well, we'll get into your film stuff, I'm sure, but you talked about Troop Zero, which is you directed Allison Janney.
Did indeed.
And this feature, and she is the main character. She is Lou in the film Lou, which is what you chose. Can you tell us before we go into the story about why you chose Lou? Tell us about working with Allison, because she's I think she's an astonishing actor, and it's great to see how. I mean, I watched all of West Wing when the first pandemic happened, because I'd never had time before. And I was like, well, let's watch West Wing, and she is one of the standout characters in the whole TV show, right?
I can honestly say, on screen and off screen, she's an amazing artist, human being, person to sit down and have a drink with, to be honest. She's everything you want her to be. She's graceful and elegant and funny. We loved working with her. And there was, this was our second film. I don't know how many films she'd done by Troop Zero, but she's just so open to it and so open to the process and getting into the character. And I just remember that first, I think we've got a video of it somewhere. She walked out, because Allison Janney, she's a beautiful looking woman, but she walked out as Miss Massey from the trailer with this wig, and she's like, oh, hi. And I was like, oh my God, you're just like a different person. And we just all cracked up and hugged her. And she's wonderful. What can I say? A true artist, professional.
I gave you a short list of films to choose from, because I think you're obviously struggling for time, and you said, Lou, that's the one with Allison Janney in it. So I'm presuming that's part of the reason why you went for this.
It totally is. And a little bit of a celeb story. We were kind of after Troop Zero, Bert and myself met Allison for martinis. And we were like, so what next? Like, you've done everything. And she goes, she was, I'm going to say figure skater or gymnast.
I think she's a figure skater.
But that, yes, exactly. And that was her connection with I, Tonya, apart from just being brilliant in it as well. And I've seen her do the most incredible physical stuff. But she said, I really want to do action. And I really want to change people's concept of what women in their 50s or 60s can do physically. And we were like, racking our brains. So anyway, haven't seen her or spoken to her for a long time. And so when that was on the list, and then I saw that it had action in it, I was like, she would have did it, and I need to see it. So that's why that one stood out.
I mean, also talking about people you've directed and female action, Viola Davis was in The Woman King, and that's a pretty meaty film, also in Troop Zero. But let's get to the synopsis of Lou. And you have 60 seconds to give us the breakdown, starting from now.
Oh my gosh, that's so much pressure. So where does it start? There's this young mum, single mum, Hannah, and her young daughter V, and they're living on this island, the Orcas Islands, I think it's called, in the Pacific Northwest, which is this kind of remote, rugged, very foresty, small community. But their landlord is this grumpy, reclusive older woman who's played by Allison Janney. And you see from the moment go, she's very capable and independent, but cold and doesn't talk to them, or she's not friendly. And then there's this storm coming. And in the height of this storm, a man breaks into Hannah's house and kidnaps V. And we find out that this guy is V's father, who's ex-Red Beret, gone AWOL from the military, now wanted, and he happens to be a sociopathic killer. And so now he's on the loose and he's kind of kidnapped the daughter. Damn it. Really?
Yeah.
That's it. That's it.
We'll obviously we'll get into the synopsis, and we can give spoilers in this as well. But let's go to Linton. Had you heard of Lou before that, and what were your initial thoughts of it?
I hadn't heard of Lou before, and I was really pleased to see Allison Janney in there. I don't know her extensively, but actually it's really nice to hear you talk about a Bertie, because it's always nice to you see and watch actors, and and I loved her in West Wing and I, Tonya as well. And it's nice to hear that off stage that they are equally as talented and as warm and as nice. That's a really nice thing to hear, that they're a well-rounded person, because you hear so many horror stories of actors, and I've worked with a few people myself who just aren't necessarily quite like how you envisage them once you've kind of got to know them on screen. So I was really looking forward to it. My biggest takeaway with this film was that it didn't work as a film for me. What I felt like was it needed to be like a 4-part BBC drama. I thought this.
So you wanted a miniseries?
Well, I just thought like all the ingredients were there, but for it to be a feature-length film, I would rather have had like 4 parts where each bit is left with a bit of a cliffhanger, and also you get just a little bit more time for prelude to this story and more depth to the character. That's not to say that I don't think anybody in the film played the character without depth. I just didn't think there was enough time to explore this relationship between Hannah, the mother, and the father, and then why Allison Janney's Lou and her son. What happened with their... I mean, we get that story, and it's very obvious why their relationship fell apart, but how that kind of... you get the beginning and the very end of that story. And I don't know, I just would have loved to have seen this be broken down. Do you know what? I likened it to... if you were baking a birthday cake, and imagine you baked it with, like, brownie mix. Like... on its own in little chunks, it's amazing, but to eat that much in one go is too much, is too rich. And that's why I felt like the story is too rich to be in 1.5 hour chunk. It needs breaking down into like 4 parts.
It's a tray bake that you try to eat all in one go.
Exactly, that's it, yeah.
Helen, what were your thoughts on Lou?
I mean, I was just going to say, I love a cake comparison anytime, so that was great. I hadn't heard of this. Came out this year. Typical
a few weeks ago.
Netflix star, just like dump them on there with no promo. I mean, big fan of Allison Janney. I think I probably saw her first maybe in The Ice Storm, was the first film I remember seeing in. Yeah. She's just got... just like a wonderful energy. So going into it was exciting to see how she could kick ass in a year that seems to be a good year for older women kicking ass as well, with the Woman King, as we mentioned. I feel as though maybe the material she had doesn't quite match up to her usual standards a bit. So the film itself, I'm probably sort of aligning a little bit there with you, Linton, in that I don't think it was quite up with her standards. There was lots of bits that I did like, but some of the story did feel a little bit half baked, particularly the end.
Go back to cake analogy.
Particularly the appreciate you coming back to the kitchen.
The mother. don't think I really quite understood her mother-son relationship and what was really going on there. And it felt like it got a bit rushed at the end. And then he just got shot by the CIA with absolutely no warning, which was a bit like, oh, so could they? That was a bit wild. But I did really, really enjoy her taking out a bad guy with a baked bean can.
Yeah, that was brilliant.
It didn't hold any punches, this film, did it?
No.
There was some horrible. There were. I mean, I thought that was, great quality weaponship. Why not make a slicing
inspiring
implement? Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
It's made me look at my beans in a different way. I'm not going near them.
I think I'm agreeing with you guys. I think there was some kind of soapy nature to the, hey mom, in the cave. I was like, oh really? What is this? Where's this come from? And then you do kind of see that there were some kind of trails laid there slightly, but then it was like, okay, I see where you're going. And I can see, I think if there was a bit more depth to it, then that spoiler would have perhaps been less jarring. But I loved Allison Janney in this. There's that scene where she goes into the hut, it's tipping it down with rain, and she looks like a frail old woman. And of course those guys are going to take her in. And then suddenly she's not a frail old woman. She's throwing like hot soup or whatever, boiling stuff into the guy's face and like cutting a neck out using a tin can, a tin can. So I love those moments and switches. And I think it's great. And I do like this kind of recent states of films like Nobody and, John Wick to a different extent, where you've got the ex-spy CIA operative bodyguard who's retired and come back for reasons. And I think I will enjoy that kind of subgenre for a long time to go. It's endlessly kind of entertaining. But yeah, what are your thoughts on the action scenes, Bertie, compared to ones you'd directed yourself? Not necessarily directed yourself, or just the film in general.
Yes, I love your concept of like making this into a mini series or a limited series, because it did feel like there wasn't enough time to explore. So because this has the elements of that kind of Cape Feariness or dead, like this sociopath who's toying with people. And the premise of this is so good, isn't it? Because we've got this older woman, which in a kick-ass role, who we think, okay, and now it's her son that she's up against. And so like when you think about that as a concept, and you think about the final scene, which is mother versus son, it's like, that's unknown territory for Hollywood. And so it's almost like the promise of the film is so great. And I was like, what elevates something from just like, I enjoyed watching it. And I was, whenever I was kind of like, drawn out of it slightly, Allison just kept pulling me back into it, maybe because I love her or maybe because she's just amazing. But she has the ability to captivate us when things kind of thinned out a little bit. But I think what elevates something to like a classic or something that lasts beyond the 90 minutes, 2 hours that we're watching it is thematics, is when the theme of motherhood or kind of like not being a great mother and what that means. And like, this is like the ends of like what being the worst mother in the world could do to a human being, turn him into a sociopathic killer who wants to kill his whole family. When you only have time for the plot and not time to explore the thematics of that, then you're just left feeling like, actually in another cake analogy, that we wanted an extra layer of icing or something. Or not even icing, maybe we got the icing. What actually we were wanting is like a really fulfilling cake underneath that icing.
Can I ask you a question, Bertie? Like when you watch a film as a director, do you ever sit there and think, I might have made this choice, or I might have done that, or can you watch it completely like objectively?
Honestly, when I'm thinking those things, I know that it's not 100% drawn me in. So in my favourite movies, I will just watch them as a viewer. Call Me By Your Name, which I don't reference in this particular podcast, but maybe in another one, is something where, I mean, actually, no, that's because sometimes when a director's doing something brilliantly, you're making mental notes of that was brilliant, that was brilliant, that was brilliant. And then when you're not completely immersed, there's the opposite end, which is, I actually find it harder to figure out especially with something like Lou, which, and I don't want to badmouth this because I really did enjoy it, and I was in for I'm busy at the moment and it engulfed me, but there wasn't like that extra layer of something or depth of something. So by the end of it, then I had to sit down and go, why wasn't it wholly successful? And kind of think about it in that way. So I don't think I'm ever fully the kind of viewer I was before I started making film, but I also completely let go of that side of me when I'm fully immersed in something.
What was a film, Helen, we had on recently that Ryan Gosling and it was the most expensive Netflix film?
Oh, The Grey Man.
The Grey Man. Yeah. So that kind of ended up in a similar way to this, where there's a head-to-head against the two adversaries. And I prefer the ending to Lou, actually, how it ended, how it kind of ended versus The Grey Man, because Grey Man was, hey, by the way, we've got an episode on that. But The Grey Man, the ending kind of came out of left field and was like, similarly, I mean, the CIA came out here and they were kind of mooted as going to take one end or another of the people out. But I think I like the way that was a face-off. I like say, Bertie, a mother and son fight. I've never seen the like. I've never even considered the like before. So that was really quite interesting. And they were equals. I don't know if either of them were holding back, but it was an interesting fight, to be completely honest.
It was, and you just wanted a bit more, like that moment where she says to him, I'm sorry, like there was the hug and I'm sorry, and I wanted it to be earned a bit more, or I wanted to explore what that meant a bit more.
That whole him being revealed as her son was just so quickly done, and I just thought like in my head, if this was an episode, there's a whole build up to that. What is this weird relationship? Why do they know each other? What is going on? That could have been built up so much more and then explored. And like you say, like there are so many amazing things about this film, like an older woman taking the lead, an action lead role. I was like, yes, this is what we need. This is what we need to see. You know, this is something that needs to be represented. And that scene where she's kicking ass was absolutely brilliant. But then I was just like, but you've given me all the payoff without the build up.
There's not much tension in the script. I thought some of it was a little bit predictable, and the reveal was a bit like, oh, so that's that then. And it was like, I feel like it should be a bigger moment than this, but it's not. And it just kind of like, oh, well. And then it's like, oh, and he's the father. And so that makes, oh.
Yeah.
That makes sense why she's writing a letter. Isn't that all lovely and sweet and wonderful? So,
and Hannah as well. The character of Hannah was very nonchalant about all these big reveals that she was like, my daughter's been stolen. Let's go and get her. Oh, you're my daughter's grandmother. Great. Like I was like, I'm sorry if I just found like if my daughter had just been kidnapped, I would be like going ape. I'd have like a whole episodic breakdown before I even think about going to find them. Like it was just like, oh, he's just taken her. Come on, let's go get her. Come on, jump in the car.
There was more kind of emotion about finding the blister. It was like that was more of a kind of like sit down, deep dive into kind of like pain and feeling than anything else that had happened.
What did you think of Lou's decision to protect? Was she protecting her granddaughter, or was she just? What kind of make of that relationship? Because I found it quite an interesting one. It added a bit of layer to the story.
Exactly. And it was, again, you wanted to explore that more, didn't you? Because on the one hand, she's being a selfless grandma who's hiding that she's a grandma, but she really does care for this child. But kind of in a realistic way, she's also this bitter and twisted woman with a past who almost runs her granddaughter over in the first, 5 minutes and doesn't seem to be... upset by that particularly.
About it, yeah. No, she nearly died.
But that's an interesting dichotomy, and I don't feel like it was fully resolved of what side. And again, shades of grey in a character, brilliant. But when you just kind of breeze over those shades of grey rather than really diving deeply into them, because I think it's really interesting to explore, Hannah, who is such a brilliant mother for having gotten out of a toxic, abusive relationship and bringing her daughter up well, versus Allison Janney's character, who had a child in order to not blow her cover when she was working undercover for the CIA. Like, this is really potent stuff. And whether it's just that like stuff was left on the edit room floor, or whether it was just that the script wasn't long enough, or whether it should have been a series, there's so much promise to this. And I almost feel like, let's do a limited series now and kind of delve into the stuff that we're all craving.
What's so interesting is that we've been able to have this whole discussion without talking about that very opening scene, which reveals so much about her character. And yet you can talk about this whole story without even acknowledging. And that says something, that kind of says something about not getting enough prelude to this story. How did she end up? I know we can give spoilers, but I won't say anything. But how did it's right at the beginning of the film. It's the first scene you see. How did she end up at this point? You know, and we can talk about this whole film. And that was actually a really major plot point about this film, wasn't it? You know, and the first thing you see, and yet we can talk about this whole film without even acknowledging,
even diving into that.
What are your guys' thoughts on this kind of subgenre of retired hit person comes out for one last job for not for money, but for emotion, for reasons that are beyond financial gain?
Love it.
Why not?
What have we got? We've got Man on Fire. Am I saying the title of that?
Yeah,
one?
Man on Fire. The Denzel Washington one.
Yeah. What else have we got in that genre?
So yeah, Nobody is a recent one with Bob Odenkirk. Unassuming. I'm throwing John Wick into that as well for that kind of style as well.
Does You Were Never Really Here sort of count?
Yeah, totally. I would say so.
I kind of feel that if you've killed someone more than once and you wanted to do it again,
you've killed them, they've come back to life, and you kill them again.
You know, and you kind of like killed the third one. You were like, hey, and get the hang of this. Like, when do you stop? I mean, it's. I don't know what goes on inside of a mind of someone who is an expert in killing someone, but I guess there must be something in the brain that makes them want to do it again. I don't know, or it's like they become hardwired for it. I'm not really sure, but yeah, I mean, her son was obviously like, maybe it's hereditary because he was like game for it as well. So I don't know. It's something that also was not quite explored in this film, I feel. But
totally, because I feel like the insinuation was that he got his sociopathy from his father. That was the insinuation. But then there's also this thing that, like, your mum just had you in order to survive and then kind of left you. So that's traumatic and can definitely inspire some kind of deep narcissistic traits in someone.
Because there was nothing about the father, was there? Unless I missed that. Like,
not
we didn't
really anything at all.
Yeah, we saw kind of the little flashes of like him being pulled away, or
like dream sequences. Yeah.
Yeah. Is there anything else you want to say before we head to the scores, guys?
I did have a question for Bertie. That I noted that this is a female director. Is it Anna Foerster? I think it is.
Foerster, yeah.
And I think it's quite, asking maybe from your experience, whether it is maybe more difficult for women to get action films made, or whether you kind of see female names attached, whether there's any sort of like, oh, women can't do action kind of attitudes, or whether you find it different.
Well, I think we should end on a really positive note for this film, because the fact that this is, you know, it's graphically shot, the action sequences are hard-hitting, it doesn't feel whimsical or overly poetical or anything that often female directors are associated with. I just celebrate that there's women telling these kind of stories now, regardless of it being a female lead and an older female lead.
I agree. I think it is. I think it is a triumph to see an older female lead in this genre, and it not be a thing. Like, they're not there going, we've got an older female lead. They're just like, this is the film.
It's Allison Janney, and we're like, okay, yeah, sure.
Yeah, exactly. Let's say if she's gonna be a kick-ass ex-retired CIA, she's gonna be a really good kick-ass ex-retired CIA, because I love her. You know, so. Yeah, I think it's a triumph for that, without having to shout about it, and that puts it firmly into the genre and deserved of that place in the genre as well. It's not like somebody's tried but they didn't quite make it, despite what we've talked about the film overall. I mean, she's definitely put Lou as one of these characters that you must remember in this genre.
And there was a final shot which suggested there could be a follow-up to this.
Maybe your TV series.
Maybe exactly. This is Lou the prequel, and now it goes on to a limited series. Well, guys, I think we should head to the scores.
Hello, I'm Kate Lever, host of Who's a Good Dog, the podcast for anyone who's ever loved a dog. We're one of the other podcasts in the Stripped Media family. Each episode, I ask a brilliant person to introduce me to their dog and tell me how having a dog has changed their life. Listen to Who's a Good Dog wherever you get your podcasts.
Welcome to the Flixwatcher scores. They are out of 5. You may have decimal places if you wish, and we will start with you, please, Bertie, with your recommendability.
I'm going to say 3.5.
Yeah, seems fair. Any particular reason for that? What would have made it be higher or lower? Or you could just leave it at that?
Do you know what? I'm going to go with 4. It's now got to be 4 because it's Allison Janney. So you just pushed me up to 4.
Linton.
I'm going to say 4 for the simple reason that it's not a really long film, and whilst we've critiqued it, I watched it with a critique mind. But if I was to stick that on a Friday night, I think I'd still really enjoy it. Like, I'd have enjoyed watching it. It's not like I've sat there and watched like 2 hours of film and thought, oh my God, there's 2 hours I'm not going to get back. It was an enjoyable 2 hours.
I'm going to go a bit lower. I'm going to give it a solid 3. I think the audience is there. If you're a fan of the films that we've already mentioned, that you should definitely give it a go. But I don't think there's enough of a story to kind of, go beyond that and sort of reach out to a new audience. So a must, obviously, for if you're a fan of her work and that kind of action genre. But it just feels like a solid 3 for me.
I'm going to go for 4 as well, because I think it's easy to recommend. It's easy to say, hey, should I watch Lou? Like, yeah, go watch it. It's fun. I think we're not nitpicky, but we're picking things apart because we have got that kind of critical eye on it. But I think if you were to say to the random person in the street, go and watch Lou, they just sit down and deal with it. And that's great. Repeat viewing score, Bertie.
Then I'm going to give that a 2.5. Don't feel the need to watch it again, but enjoyed the watch.
Linton.
Yeah, I'm going to give it a 2. Same. Don't feel the need to watch it again, but it was a decent watch on a first try. I think had it been something more like Shutter Island, where the more you watch it, the more that's revealed, the more of these little nuances, I'd be like, yeah, go for it. But what you see was what you got with that film the first time.
Helen.
Yeah, I'm going to join you in a 2 as well. I mean, I'm unlikely to watch it, but like if anyone's was like, do you want to watch it with me? And I didn't have anything else lined up, I'd say all right. But yeah, I'm not in a rush to watch it again.
Yeah, let's go for the 2 party. I'll just go for 2.1, give a slight edge. Again, if my wife said I don't watch it with her, and she said, do you want to watch Lou? I was like, yeah, let's watch Lou. Why not? I'll tell her it's a bit grim in places. She might be squeamish in places, but apart from that.
There's also a really cute dog, so you could like counterbalance it with like cool dog.
Jack's a dog, wasn't it? Yeah. Yeah.
Gruesome deaths, cute dog.
Small screen score, Bertie.
There are some beautiful, big, wide shots and drone shots and helicopter shots of Orcas Island, which is it's beautiful, stunning scenery and like really elevated the scope of it. So I would have said for the story, I'd say 2. I got everything out, but actually I'm going to nudge it up for a 3 because it would have been beautiful to watch those images, the big images on a big screen.
Linton.
Everything Bertie's just said, I agree with entirely. Solid 3.
Helen.
Yes, I wouldn't have gone to see this one at the cinema. It wouldn't have like sparked my interest. I think it's fine on Netflix, on TV. Turn the volume up a little bit louder and get that full-on action sounds in going in the house. So I'm going to give it a 5 for small screen.
I think this is great for small screen. I'm going to give it lower than Helena because there were some, obviously it wasn't as maybe as cinematically shot as Reverend, for example, but there were some definite scenes where they're going through the forest and it looked grim. It looked like the worst place to be in the world. And the rain coming down, I think it would have been a bit more enveloping perhaps had that been in the cinema. So 4.1. Engagement score. Bertie, how engaged were you throughout the film?
Do you know, I was engaged. I am going to go 4 again.
Linton?
Yeah, a solid 4. And I say that because there was 1 or 2 bits where I missed it and I had to rewind. And if I wasn't engaged, I wouldn't have bothered to rewind. I would have just let the film play on.
Helen?
So I think this has like, the first hour is like super, super solid in terms of like action and things are happening and there's kicking ass and there's obstacles to come across. And then at one point I was like, how can there be 30 minutes left of this? And I felt that it dragged a little bit there for me, and I got a little bit like, there was one point where there was 3 people just like limping around. It was a bit like, they're all just limping.
A limping foot chase, wasn't it? I thought that was quite interesting.
It was quite funny. And I was just like, they're just all limping. Like, there's no way they can be chasing after each other. They're all running at the same speeds. So I think just about manages its runtime to keep me entertained. But yeah, the first hour is much pacier. So 3.5.
Yeah, I'll go for 3. I'm going to go between both you guys. 3.75. It did wane a bit. One thing that I was just thinking about that slightly annoyed me was the bit with the bomb in the lighthouse. And she's like, I can't dismantle it, but I can change the frequency. And then he was about to press the button. And just then she changed the frequency. I was like, I'm not sure I buy that. So there were things like that, which was like, but it was, it did keep me entertained all the way through. So 3.75, that gives us an overall score of 3.37188, which is fair. You're laughing at the specificity of the
very specific, isn't it?
It's just a spreadsheet that we just, the algorithm does what it does. But yeah, I think that's about fair. Bertie and Linton, can we sign off by telling everyone where we can find you online, and we'll say goodbye to the listeners?
Online, our directing Instagram is at BertAndBertie Directors. That's pretty much it.
Remind people of TV shows and films where they can see your work as well.
Oh, right, that. Thank you. Well, season 1 of The Great. Troop Zero is on Amazon Prime.
Yeah, Amazon Prime,
That's fun for all the family.
Hold on, you just mentioned another streaming service. How dare you? Carry on.
Oh, gosh. Am I not allowed?
No, of course you can.
I haven't sworn, though. So maybe I can take that back and drop an F-bomb.
Still got time.
Fucking Amazon Prime. So sorry. I didn't mean to use that. And then watch out on, I'm not going to mention the other streaming service, another big computer maker / content provider. There's a show next year coming out called Wool, which was really exciting sci-fi, and a Brie Larson show we've just worked on called Lessons in Chemistry.
Fantastic. Linton, where can we find you online, and tell us about your stuff?
Yeah, so Classical Fix is the podcast. You can get that on BBC Sounds or on Apple Podcasts. Check it out. There's loads of episodes there. In fact, we've just reached episode 100 this week.
Fantastic.
With the amazing Kalechi, who's on Black History Month playlist. So check that one out. And then I've got, you can get my Twitter, which is just at Linton Stephens. And the other thing I should tell you about is my illustration Instagram. So if you want to check that out, at Insta_Sketcher.
I'm a huge fan of your illustrations, and I do, if I have the power to make any Disney film, you'll be the head designer, 100%. I'm not even joking.
Thanks, Cohen.
Well, thank you very much, guys. It's been an absolute pleasure to talk about Lou with you guys.
Thanks so much for coming on.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Enjoyed this episode of Flixwatcher podcast? Why not leave us a 5-star review on iTunes? You can also follow us at FlixWatcherPod on Twitter, and we're at Flixwatcher on Instagram. Thanks as always to the mighty people for their mighty tunes, and Ben from Rockwood Audio for his awesome editing skills. If you're looking to get your podcast edited as sweet as this, get in touch with Ben, and that's Rockwood, ROKK Wood Audio. Tell them Flixwatcher sent you.
You just heard a Stripped Media production.